community thinks that they are Egyptian and they follow something like Maat in the Medu Neter. Do you guys know anything about that in West Africa? Is that a system of religion out there?
No, the system of the religion in West Africa is how our traditional religions. I don't know if you've heard of God of Thunder, God of Lightning, God of these are traditional religions.
So God of Thunder, God of Lightning, yes. Those are traditional.
Before Christianity.
Before Christianity.
Yes.
Okay, so before the colonialism in Islam, you had gods. Your gods.
Yes.
Right.
We have one god called Chi, the other small gods.
Right.
Smaller gods.
You made my point is that what Black Americans think they are and what they worship is not what was worshipped in West Africa, where they actually came from on the slave ships. That's not those wasn't the gods. No. Those wasn't the gods.
Black Americans was listening to other Black Americans teach about Mesoamerican history and tell you about Olmecs and all this old shit. Why would you listen to a Black American who has no credentials in Mesoamerican history tell you about the Olmecs in Mesoamerica? Why wouldn't you go to a real Mesoamerican scholar? Because there are no Black American scholars in Mesoamerican history, but they're trying to steal Mesoamerican history. Black Americans are trying to steal Egyptian history. Black Americans are trying to steal Moorish history. They're trying to steal everything to make themselves feel better. I am, and most people listening to me are African American or Black American. That is who we are in 2021. Our distant ancestors are from West Central Africa. Nowhere else if you're Black American or African American. Plain and simple. We descend from West Central Africans. You guys are West Central Africans who said, fuck our distant ancestors. We want something sexy. And we're going to argue about Hebrews and Egyptians for 15 years. And we're neither one of them. We've wasted time. Is what y'all done was wasted time. And guess what? The Hebrews is wrong as fuck. And the Comedics is wrong as fuck. Two niggas wrong as fuck arguing with each other about another people's culture and history. Can you imagine this? Black Americans, with their low self-esteem and their identity, have been culture vultures. And we need to admit this and move forward. We claim to be the Moors, the Native Americans, the original Chinese, whatever the fuck that's supposed to mean. We've claimed everybody's culture except our own. People took on comedic names for a fucking reason. But today you'll want to people start backpedaling. Oh, we're not claiming that we're them. Bullshit. I've already showed what you guys consider master teachers claiming that we are the Egyptians. So ain't no backpedaling unless you're correcting them. If you're not correcting them, you're on the same line and doing the same bullshit. Today. You guys got to stop stealing other people's culture and be proud West Central Africans. And worry about your own shit. You're Black Americans now. You're African Americans now. But you're distant descendants of West Central African peoples. That's your bloodline. Focus on your shit a little more. And get out of everybody else's shit. Because on the world stage of academia, y'all making black folk look bad, destitute, thirsty, unhappy. When I went to Ghana and I visited all the museums, and when I went to those four museums, I didn't see not one ancient Egyptian symbol. I didn't see anything related to the culture of the ancient Egyptians or Nubians in any of the museums in Ghana I went to. So I'm tripling down now. Let me just say this. Dr. Ben brainwashed us, Black Americans. He wasn't wrong for teaching history, but he was wrong for claiming it's us. And all these people over all these decades who've been back and forth to Egypt on educational tours and trips have been lying and co-signing Dr. Ben's lies.
When I post something about race, somebody will pop up and say the Egyptians were European, or the Egyptians were West Asian, or the Egyptians were white, the Egyptians weren't sub-Saharan African. And there seems to be a great deal of personal identity interest in claiming the Egyptians and their power and their gold and their success and their pyramids and all their stuff, and claiming it for themselves. Appropriations of all kinds. And those appropriations can be seen amongst Europeans, and the bust of Nefertiti, who was probably a proud Theban woman of color, taken to Berlin, and then she's put on postage stamps. And you Google the postage stamps of the last 100 years with Nefertiti on it, and they are literally whitewashed, and that brown skin is very much taken away so that everyone can claim Nefertiti. That's pretty interesting. That Tut recreation from the 2005 LACMA show, the whitest European-like skin you could possibly imagine. Even that recreation of Tut that shows him as a deformed product of incest, same whitish European with a tan kind of skin. And then there's appropriations from the other side. So there's an Afrocentrist perspective that you have to claim it, and then you get a darker skin color applied to the ancient Egyptians than they necessarily had. And there's an attempt to claim Egypt as a tool of power for sub-Saharan communities. It works the same way. So, and Egypt doesn't want to fit into either, which is pretty interesting because they're there on the crossroads between the sub-Saharan world and between the West Asian, European, Mediterranean world, and they are North African. And the study that I like to go to the most, this is a study from about 5 years ago, and I'll Google it and put it in the notes, but it's a National Geographic study that it looked at the DNA of the current population of Egypt, sampling that population. Obviously, they're not doing DNA of every single person in Egypt, but doing a sampling and comparing it to other parts of Africa, West Asia, and Europe. And it's amazing that population in Egypt is not Arab. Arab invasion of Egypt in the 7th century was an elite replacement, not a replacement of the entire population, only a replacement of maybe the top 5% of the population. And the people in Egypt today are North African, and they share a genetic similarities with Libya, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco. This is what the people of Egypt are most connected to, which should make...
The modern day Egyptian is the ancient Egyptian. Period. People don't disappear. Nobody left their land and disappeared. Whenever someone was conquered, all of sub-Saharan Africa was conquered, chopped up, and divvied out. Every single one of those sub-Saharan Africans, the Ghanaians, the Nigerians, everybody in Kenya, everybody in the whole of sub-Saharan African is still there, although they were conquered. They didn't disappear. 4,000 Arabs only invaded Egypt. They didn't change the population that was millions there already. They didn't. Egyptians never ever disappeared. For you to think otherwise means you are brainwashed by Afrocentrics. The modern day Egyptians you see there right now today, July the fucking 8th, whatever the date it is, 2021, is the Egyptians that was there in ancient times. 67% of their DNA is of the ancient Egyptians. Everybody in the geographical location today was in the same geographical location thousands of years ago, 10,000 years ago. The Native Americans of today in the Americas is the same Native Americans that was there 10,000 years ago. This what niggas is lying to you about. When did the Egyptians ever write or say that they dispersed and left and went to other lands? When was this? Why are Afrocentric people lying on the ancient Egyptians? Show me when they said they dispersed and left the land and disappeared. When was this? You can't show that. They never disappeared.
Pharaoh Ramses II reigned during the 19th dynasty. His preserved mummified corpse shows he was not a Negro. As Egyptologist Frank Yerko notes, he is a typical northern Egyptian. He came from the northeasternmost nome of Egypt. He had fine, wavy hair, a prominent hooked nose, and moderately thin lips, end quote. In fact, the mummy of Ramses II shows he had straight, ginger hair. These are not Negro features. We also have the mummy of Thutmose IV, who reigned from 1419 to 1386 BC. He had straight long hair, untypical of ancient and modern Negroes.